Hello there, welcome back to another video. My name is Bradley, but you can call me Bradley, and today we're doing something very interesting. I want to build a floating city, and that's a weird idea, I know, and well, it's actually kind of not a weird idea. It's fairly normal for my channel, especially when I've been doing weird non-Euclidean hide-and-seek maps for the past ages. It's weird for my channel because it's normal. Anyways, welcome to another weird thing. This is the race to 10,000. Over there is my final goal, which is 10,000 subscribers. Not final goal for the channel, but my current goal, because I beat my first goal of 1,000 subscribers. So now what's next? Each one of these little blocks here is one subscriber, and each time I get a subscriber I add one on. So if you want to be part of this big long line, you can add a block on. And because it's a race, I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if we had lots of characters racing across it? And I put I put a lot of effort into this. The first two comments I had was a sphere and a cube. You guys are really original ideas over here. We've got some real geniuses in the chat. I'm joking, please don't leave, you will matter to me. This is what the race is looking like so far. We've got the big sphere, he's kind of slowed down, and this guy, he's zooming along very quickly. This is, by the way, this is Cubulus Pack and Smash. He's very, he's very cool. And this is Spheroid. He doesn't do much these days, he's getting old. He started 30 years ago. If you have any ideas for more characters we can add to the race, you can do that. Before I get distracted, I should move on to making the floating islands. I'm telling you, all islands float. Water is just air. I'm quite fond of this. Let me show you through what I've done. Let me explain a little of how this all works. So I'm imagining that at some point this was one big island that was all one big clump, and then something hit it, like an asteroid or a claw or a strike or something, and it caused the island to split into a million pieces. I do want to do a bit of lore with this island too, and I haven't come up with all the details yet, but it could be quite cool to make a little story as we go along and then have it, and by the end of the week it's like, this is the reason the island exists. But yeah, as that strike hit it, the island clustered in the air. It didn't. None of the pieces would have fallen though, and I'm guessing this is how it would have worked. Imagine if there was water that was flowing through, it would carve these rocks into different shapes, and this would have had to have happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. Maybe not that much, maybe thousands or hundreds of years ago. What would have happened is the shape of these islands, the cracks that originally had formed, would have smoothed out and became more natural looking from the air hitting it and knocking rocks off, and it just becoming a bit wider and gaps made for air travel, all sorts of things like that. And I think that's quite interesting. And one thing I had to remind myself not to do was weight it evenly. And I mentioned this in the video where I built my dream house over there, which was my video where I built on my birthday, so it was a little smaller. But I mentioned weighting builds, and that's about spreading out details evenly so your build doesn't look like that one where it looks really messy and everything's all over the place, and it doesn't just look like really lopsided. But when you're doing environments, it's kind of the opposite, because you can stop lopsidedness and you can weight things evenly with buildings and details and all that. But if you start weighting it with the islands, it ends up looking kind of flat and boring. So over here, there's lots of different distances between islands. There's different shapes and sizes, and there is sort of this like diamond shape you can see, but none of it's weighted in any single direction, I don't believe, and things just look kind of randomly dispersed, but they've all got a pattern too. And I know I mentioned earlier about the patterns, the islands breaking off, and it helped me come up with some really original shapes too, because first of all, the first thing I did, I think, was actually I made some of these islands here, and I was thinking, okay, what are these going to broken off from? And I was like, okay, so they would have broken off from here, so I cut in a little shape here, and then I thought what caused the cut, and I cut in a little break in here. I was like, okay, this is where the original fracture happened. And then I was like, okay, so this island that split off over here, that would have been cut too, so that's got a little bit of a branching cut there, which is kind of where it's smoothed out over the decades. That's why it's not as big as this one, which hasn't had as much airflow to smooth out because of this rock right here. And you've got that all over the place. Every single rock looks like it fitted together. Every rock looks like it fitted together once, like this, how this curves in there and this curves into there. And if you placed all these rocks together, they wouldn't fit identically. But even if you look at the world on a geography map, or just, a map. I don't know why I said geography map. But if you look at a world map, all the pieces of the world kind of fit together. Not perfectly, but just enough that you can see Pangaea and you see how the world originally split. And that's my idea for these islands. So now I just need to throw it into the air, make the bottom of them, and see where this goes. Being 100% honest with you guys, terrain is not my forte. It's not something that I was ever particularly good at, but recently I've been getting into it more and learning the basics, and it's like this whole other world of design and building, so I feel a lot of the time like I'm starting from scratch. Some of the building techniques I can use over there, but not most of them. But one thing that I did realize that is very useful is that if I'm imagining it like I'm shaping out a building, it's a lot easier. I can put a cube here, I can put a cube here, and then I slowly smooth out that gap in between. So that's why at the moment you can see it's got a lot of layers and it looks like I'm building it out of Lego. Well, Lego might be a little generous, more like vomit, but give it time, it might look cool. If you just watched the time-lapse, I really hope you did. You didn't skip it, did you? You better not have skipped the time-lapse, because the time-lapse is important. But basically, I have finished the floating island base of it. The floating island part, you know, the bit that floats. And I quite like this design. Obviously, you didn't see all of the texturing and all the detailing while I was on the time-lapse, because I did that right before I went out. So what I've got here is loads and loads of floating islands, and there's some like I think it's Chinese pottery, where if it breaks, they replace it with like these gold linings on the inside. I don't think it's actual gold. I think it's just like colored like gold lining, but I might be incorrect, and it might actually just be real gold, and they're like really pricey like vases and things. But whatever reason it is, I thought, hey, what was if I did that, but on a floating island that's obviously cracked apart, so it makes sense if they filled in all the cracks with gold or magic metal or whatever. I don't know, I thought it'd be a bit of a silly idea, very expensive, but also a very silly idea, and I threw it together very quickly, and I really like the design of that, so I thought on a couple other islands. And overall, this is just a really cool shape for a bunch of floating islands. Obviously, the thing that's going to matter is what's on top eventually, which will be the like city area, which I'm going to be laying out soon. There'll be lots of houses, maybe like a little castle or something in the middle. I'm not 100% sure yet. I just want to make sure it looks really, really nice so you guys can have fun looking at it. We had another person ask to put something on the racetrack too. So if you have any ideas for things to put on the racetrack, go ahead, do that. I haven't added the new thing on yet, and I'll talk about it once I've added it, because that's quite fun. But I won't add it to yet. This video is kind of becoming two things in one, but I'm gonna pay attention to the floating islands, because that's the important thing, that's the fun thing, and that's the interesting thing. I've added more to the base now. I've turned off my funny shader, so if you're wondering why the video suddenly looks a little bit darker, that's why. But still, I can see things easier. I'm not going to turn them back on now because I'm silly. I don't know. But yeah, what I'm doing now, right, is I have created the top of the island, and I know I've shown you the bottom here, which looks very lovely, but I've added some shape to the top of it, which looks very lovely, very sweet. It's got like a farmland feel, and that's kind of what I was going for, and I do want to add some like farm stretches, like lots of wheat in here, which could look really nice. And originally I was actually going to go for like a kingdom castle type aesthetic, but what I actually want to do now is more of like a farmer living on this like big area, but it's like a fantasy farmer, so that's why his house looks a little strange compared to other things. And we've got loads of like stocks and wheat fields and houses and sheds and whatever they're going to be. These are just like shapes, like outlines right now, but this is the main building, the main centerpiece of the island. Is pretty cool. This angle here, that's got a really cool design for the side of the building. The only design side that I'm not huge on is this. Even it's not terrible, and this little bit down here does help this side of the build, but it's not my favorite design I've done. So maybe there's a way I can make that look better, but if I can't, then it's not terrible, so it might just be something that I keep like that. I really like this design so far. I also started on some of the details around the area. I want to add like a path coming out this door connecting into some of the important places, and I'm doing like this grass design where it's very thick in some areas, and I think that looks really nice from far away, because you get this like this extra shape in the silhouette, and I think that's really cool. I also added this on the side, which is pretty useless considering the rest of it isn't fenced off, but I think these little fences could look nice around here, especially on the flatter edges. Like, this is like quite a steep drop, so people are like, oh, maybe people are afraid or they might fall off or whatever. So, he's slowly building a fence, but he's not completed yet. I think I'll leave these islands so you can't get to them, at least without some parkour, because I think it should feel like he hasn't reached out to all of the different areas yet. His like island maybe started floating only recently. Because that could be quite cool if this was like came out of the ground fairly recently, actually, which would kind of ruin the idea of everything connecting together. Maybe it's been 10 or 15 years, but he hasn't branched out all the way yet. He's a little afraid. He hasn't been able to get down. Nobody's came up to help him yet. So yeah, he's just been making progress on his farm. He's not gonna go hungry, At least he's got that, eh? This build is a weird one for me because I'm not sure if I like it or not. On one hand, the front area looks really cool and the shape is really nice, but I think I could have done better on some of the details and made it look more unique and original in a lot of areas. So I'm always a bit topsy-turvy on whether I like it, whether I don't like it. There are certain areas that I do, and in the end it's just a bit of a mess in my head, and I'm not 100% sure if it's the thing I wanted to create here. But I'll talk about the details I do like. I do like the colours of it. I use white and red, so diorite and bricks, which I think works really well. And the shape of the roofs, that was really, really cool. And I think especially the silhouette at the front looks really, really good. Looking at the build now, I think one thing I could have changed though is the amount of colours in it. Like the bottom area that is made of diorite here could have probably been made of something else to make that look like it had a different colour. Maybe just even if it was just a slight change in shade to make the build feel more segmented. I think out of all the bases I've made recently, this is actually one of the nicest ones. But there are some issues and things I'd like to talk about. First of all, the most notable issue is, even though the front has a really cool silhouette and everything is positioned really nicely, the back is another story. It kind of looks ugly from this angle, and I just want to ignore that for a bit because I wasn't really sure how to fix it in the end. I did try a couple things, and I don't know if you saw in the time lapse or not, but I didn't really like any of them. So I kind of just ignored it in the end and went, okay, this is a really cool angle. This is the angle we focus on. Ignore everything else. And yeah, this looks really cool. I really like the front of the space. I originally had a window up here, but I thought it was too generic to have a window, so I went for a clock instead, and I quite like that clock tower. Mystical farm thing, whatever. Kind of looks kind of Star Wars-y. I do Star Wars stuff sometimes. If you're wondering why I'm a turtle right now, watch my latest short. I think you should be able to guess or tell by then. What I've got here, it looks very lovely. My favourite thing about this whole island isn't actually the buildings, isn't any of the details, isn't even the grass, which I'm actually very, very proud of the way I've spaced it out. It's the actual island itself, and that's the first thing we made in the video, but the bottom of the island, especially with everything added in now, just looks so lovely. I love the design of this. I love the different weight distributions, the thickness of it, just the design in general, the way everything's so spread out. It just looks so nice, and it's one of my favorite builds that I've done in a really, really long time because of that. But I don't think I have much else to say. It's got a cool design, cool textures, cool builds in general. I was going to do a story with this. I think I said, like, yeah, we've got a farmer who lives in the sky. His house flew away. That's the basic idea for it. We've got a really cool build. I've got one thing left to say, and I'm kind of blending in the background, so let's go with blue. Bye-bye!